As it was on the front page of the Sunday Times a month ago, you may or may not have heard that David Davis, senior and connected Conservative Member of Parliament, has written to Mark Roberts, Chief Constable of Cheshire Constabulary, and has made a formal perjury complaint against Ravi Jayaram over his evidence at 2 Lucy Letby trials. Calling for an investigation is one thing. He stepped it up a gear in an interview with Andrew Neil on Times Radio, when he matter-of-factly stated that Ravi Jayaram and other individuals who are unspecified, but presumably Dr Evans, had lied during the trials.
We know people told lies. I mean, one of the doctors said, "Oh, well, I came upon her standing over a baby that was basically asphyxiated."
David Davis is, of course, talking about the baby K incident. As David Davis points out, Dr Jayaram's testimony under oath is completely contradicted by an email he sent much earlier that was discovered by the Thirlwall inquiry.
Actually, in his emails at the time, he said, "She did call me."
My perception is that David Davis is just shooting from the hip here, and that he hadn't weighed up any legal ramifications as a consequence of saying this. I think it's significant that he says the contradictions are an issue of lies rather than incorrect memory recall, which is what even some Lucy Letby supporters have suggested. On paper, this would appear to me to open David Davis up to a potential defamation claim from Ravi Jayaram. Please let me know in the comments what you think of that, especially if you have legal training. I doubt Dr Jayaram would want to go down the avenue of pursuing it unless he can bring in some form of injunction or super injunction to stop this being discussed publicly, as that would obviously draw further attention to his inconsistencies under oath. I wonder if by legal technicality, Ravi Jayaram would have a stronger defamation claim if David Davis had referred to him as a perjurer. At this point in time, Ravi Jayaram is not a convicted perjurer, and that may be something for a jury to decide down the road as to whether or not his inconsistencies are something like confirmation bias. However, it's clear David Davis refers to lies, and by extension, he refers to Ravi Jayaram's testimony under oath. I will get into the response from Cheshire Constabulary to David Davis' perjury complaint in a bit. It looks to me like a fob-off response. I might be wrong, but it's not a stretch to think that they are reluctant to investigate Ravi Jayaram for perjury, having conducted a multi-million-pound investigation based off his advice. There may be a perception amongst most observers that the grounds for an investigation into Ravi Jayaram for perjury and/or obstructing the course of justice relates solely to an email that contradicts his trial testimony. This, I believe, is a misconception. In practice, the grounds for an investigation are multifaceted, and the drive comes, I am aware, David Davis is probably more aware, from some of the most senior figures in British medicine within the relevant disciplines of paediatrics and neonatology. I suspect most of the senior figures who want to see Ravi Jayaram investigated are anonymous at this point in time, as they are working in the NHS and don't want the adverse publicity. I suspect these figures consider David Davis a safer and more effective point of contact than talking to the tabloids. Beyond the email contradiction and issues with his medical evidence, there is a potential police conduct issue, as Ravi Jayaram made an allegation, which you shall see perfectly fitted to the same swipe data error that the police made in their investigation. So first, to look at Ravi Jayaram's email contradictions. To do a recap, or in case there's anyone who hasn't seen it, it's been described extensively in the media, but homing in on this article, hidden email cast out on Lucy Letby verdict. Describing the trial evidence, they say, prosecuting counsel Nick Johnson, KC, asked Jayaram, "Did you hear any call for help from Lucy Letby?" His answer, "No, not at all." Skipping ahead in this unheard article, they then quote from a Ravi Jayaram email on the 4th of May 2017. Quote, "Staff nurse Letby at incubator and called Dr Jayaram to inform of low saturations." So next to look at some of the medical evidence that has led to doubts amongst experts that he was telling the truth. One of the first issues with his evidence is that both Dr Evans and Dr Jayaram told the jury that they were the first to think of an air embolism diagnosis. But more than that, they claim to have independently arrived on Dr Shoo Lee's research. Probably the fastest way to get a scope on the air embolism evidence, rather than just taking my word for it, is to look at this news report which was posted in the Chester Standard on 7th of March 2023. It's linked in the description. Dr Evans said, "The first time I heard a local doctor mention air embolus was a couple of weeks ago. The first person I know to raise the area of air embolus was me. I did that in case number 1, and I thought, oh my God, what is going on here? I was not told anything about any suspect. I knew absolutely nothing." The article then points out, last month, Countess of Chester consultant Dr Ravi Jayaram told the jury a chill went down my spine in June 2016 when he read a research paper that described the effects of air embolism. Next, to look at some quotes from Dr Evans from the trial transcript, which could be seen as a rebuke to the idea that Dr Evans and Dr Jayaram colluded behind the scenes about the air embolism story. He's volunteering the information unnecessarily, but it could be a case of a guilty conscience. Quote, "First of all, just briefly about this paper. That is the paper by Lee, as in Dr Shoo Lee, and Tanswell, and it's probably the best known paper in relation to pulmonary vascular air embolism in the newborn. It's published in 1989, so despite being over 30 years ago, it's a very well known paper, and the other reason it's well known for British paediatricians is it was published in the Archives of Disease in Childhood, which is a monthly academic journal that all paediatricians receive. So therefore, the archives are the most widely read journal from paediatricians. Anyway, so this is not some obscure journal, that nobody ever reads." Other consultants working in this field have raised doubts that Dr Lee's paper from 30 years ago is one you would think of off the top of your head without being suggested it. To an extent, Dr Evans is the one volunteering the information that there was absolutely no conferring of ideas behind the scenes, so this aspect of the case might make him seem slightly more bad. The next area which has raised huge doubts that Dr Jayaram was telling the truth relates to his claim to have seen a pink flitting rash on 2 of the babies, baby A and baby M. This pink rash led to a sort of diagnosis at the trial of an air embolism, which led to a murder and attempted murder conviction. The issue with the pink flitting rash is that Dr Jayaram didn't record it anywhere in his notes or mention it under oath in a coroner's court for 2.5 years. It was only really after the accusations against Lucy Letby had fully taken shape that he suddenly remembered seeing it. This was a convenient recollection. Dr Shoo Lee describes in his research a phenomenon known as Lee's sign, a sign that only occurs in the event of an air embolism. The exact symptoms of Lee's sign are a bit different to the clip I'm using as a representation. You could imagine the pink patch moving faster. The defence case that has been put forward on Lucy Letby's behalf is that Dr Jayaram did not see Lee's sign, which would have been a cast iron sign of an air embolism, but rather he was observing skin mottling, which may have resulted from reduced blood flow to areas of the skin as the baby was collapsing. The issue here is that Dr Lee in his research describes the physical symptoms of Lee's sign as being completely distinctive, so much so that Lee's sign has only ever been described to have ever occurred anywhere in the medical literature in the event of an air embolism. For this reason, Ravi Jayaram's claim to have seen Lee's sign on 2 of the babies shortly after they were seen by Lucy Letby was extremely beneficial to the prosecution case at the first trial. A further complication to Dr Jayaram's claim to have seen a distinctive pink rash occurred at Dr Shoo Lee's February press conference. Dr Lee clarified that Lee's sign has only ever been seen to be observed in cases where air was accidentally injected into arteries at high pressure, whereas Lucy Letby was accused of injecting air into veins at low pressure using the readily available lines which had been set up and were intended for administering fluids, nutrients, etc. So if the boot goes on the other foot and it ever becomes Ravi Jayaram in the dock, then his claim to have seen this pink rash could be put to a jury for them to decide if he saw it. In such a scenario, part of the dynamic of the Lucy Letby trial could be flipped on its head, where it may be in Dr Jayaram's interests to claim that the pink rash maybe wasn't so distinctive, and maybe he was just confusing it with skin mottling. The next suspect part of Ravi Jayaram's testimony relate to his timings on the night of the baby K incident at the first trial. Dr Jayaram has claimed to have a very distinctive memory of this night.
That is a night that is etched on my memory and will be in my nightmares forever, to be honest.
The following is going to come from a court report on February 28, 2023 by the Chester Standard. I tend to think it's an accurate reflection of what was being discussed at the first trial. Just below the 248 timestamp, the court is showing swipe data for Joanne Williams, who left the neonatal unit at 3:47 a.m. Mr. Myers says it is very precise in coinciding with Dr. Jayaram's recollection of waiting 2 to 3 minutes before the desaturation is timed at 3:50 a.m. and asks if Dr. Jayaram always has such a precise memory. Dr. Jayaram says, "In this event I did." He adds, "I kept telling myself, don't be ridiculous. I looked at my watch, I didn't have a stopwatch." Dr. Jayaram says he has never seen the swipe data nor had cause to look at any data. So in the first trial, Ravi Jayaram is very clear that he has a precise memory of looking at his watch at 3:50 a.m. when on paper Lucy Letby was alone with the baby. However, you may or may not have seen it, but last year the Crown Prosecution Service and the police admitted that they got the door swipe data back to front, such that people who were recorded as going out were in fact actually coming in. So even though Ravi Jayaram told the jury this night was emblazoned in his mind and told ITV News he had a distinctive memory of this night.
That is a night that is etched on my memory and will be in my nightmares forever, to be honest.
The prosecution would have to move the timing of the attack to 3:45 a.m. by the second trial. Some might see this as raking over the details, but if you go by Ravi Jayaram's testimony in the first trial, quote, "The point is, this incident happened in the window when she, Joanne Williams, was out the room." So obviously, the police ultimately did the right thing in correcting the swipe data for the second trial. However, I think it is suspect that Ravi Jayaram made an allegation that closely fitted timings that would later turn out to be false. For me, there are at least grounds for questioning Ravi Jayaram under caution as to his latest memory of these timings. The issues with Ravi Jayaram's claims about the night of the baby K incident don't stop with contradictions about Lucy Letby calling for help and about the timing of the attack. He also said this to ITV News about the issue of alarms being on, and he also said something similar to the jury.
Ordinarily, number one, the alarms would have been going off.
Whereas the following is a reenactment of nurse Joanne Williams' testimony. This is the nurse who Ravi Jayaram claimed was temporarily out the room when Lucy Letby opportunistically attacked in the first trial.
"Do you remember hearing anything as you came back into the unit?"
"Yes, alarms going off."
There is a further issue with the notes Ravi Jayaram made at the time, which was noted by an appeal court judge.
In our judgment, it is of some significance that the critical issue for the jury was whether they were sure of the evidence of Dr Jayaram.
So looking at the court report from 19th of June 2024, in the Chester Standard they quote from a court report which in turn quotes from Ravi Jayaram's testimony. Quote, "The transport team note, call received from Dr Jayaram, babies dislodged the tube and had to be re-intubated." So obviously at the trial, Dr Jayaram makes the allegation that it was Lucy Letby who dislodged the tube, but in his note at the time, he was saying the baby dislodged their own tube.
There was an inconsistency between his evidence and the contemporaneous record.
Dr Svelena Dimitrova is a consultant neonatologist who made a complaint about Ravi Jayaram to the General Medical Council about a statement he made about tube dislodgements.
The only possibility was that that tube had to have been dislodged deliberately.
So as I understand it, the arguments are that babies dislodge their own tube so regularly, the accusation that only a nurse could dislodge the tube is unsupportable. This complaint from Dr. Dimitrova was made in July 2024, so I think the statement is not at the top of the list of complaints about Dr. Jayaram at this point. So these are some of the issues with Ravi Jayaram's testimony that go beyond the complaints about the contradiction in his email. Next, to look at a statement on behalf of Chief Constable Mark Roberts from Cheshire Constabulary. Reading through it, quote, "The Chief Constable has received a letter. This has been reviewed and he will be responding in due course, addressing all the concerns raised." So that response to me makes it sound like they're going to stall for a bit and then dismiss the contradictions as a confused memory. It could be seen as being in the interests of Cheshire Constabulary not to investigate Ravi Jayaram for perjury or obstructing the course of justice, as this would undermine their multi-million-pound investigation and probably also make them look stupid at the same time. A further disincentive for Cheshire Constabulary also relates to the swipe data issues and a reluctance for Cheshire Constabulary to investigate whether they did or didn't have a rogue officer who showed Dr. Jayaram the swipe data. In his perjury complaint, David Davis said, quote, "Cheshire Constabulary now has a clear obligation to launch a formal perjury investigation into Dr. Jayaram's testimony, or alternatively confirm whether such an investigation is already underway. This matter goes beyond the outcome of a single trial. It touches on public confidence in the integrity of our criminal justice system, in particular the requirement to tell the truth under oath in court, and the duty of full and fair disclosure during prosecution." So in conclusion, I think there's a perception by some that the grounds for investigating Ravi Jayaram on suspicion of perjury relates solely to a solitary email where he contradicts his trial testimony. In reality, there are grounds beyond that, with his claim to have observed the incredibly rare phenomenon known as Lee's sign and an emblazoned memory of an attack at 3:50 a.m. being examples of that.